Part 1. The crimson moons of Zerion 7 cast their bloody light across the mining compound as Commander Zarathek watched the human work crews through her observation deck's reinforced glass. Her scaled fingers drummed against the metal railing, each tap echoing her growing frustration. 3 months. 3 months since the Galactic Mining Consortium had assigned her to oversee this backwater operation, and the humans continued to defy every expectation. Status report, she hissed to her aide, Lieutenant Vextar, who scurried forward with his datapad clutched against his chest. The humans have exceeded their quotas again, Commander. 17% above projected output. His voice carried the nervous tremor that all her subordinates had developed since her assignment here. Zarathek's golden eyes narrowed. This was impossible. Every species in the known galaxy had predictable work patterns. The Altarians were methodical but slow. The Centauri were fast but sloppy. The Vegan colonies were efficient but required constant supervision. Humans, according to all official records, were supposed to be weak, fragile creatures barely suitable for basic labor. Yet here they were, not only meeting impossible deadlines but singing while they did it. Singing. What manner of creatures sang while hauling 30-ton ore carts through sulfur-rich tunnels that would poison most species within hours? "Show me the overnight reports," she commanded. Vextar's claws clicked nervously on his pad. "Commander, perhaps you should review the medical bay incidents first." The medical bay? Zarathek turned, her tail lashing behind her. As a reptoid, she stood nearly 8 feet tall, her species having evolved from apex predators on a world where only the strongest survived. The humans barely reached her shoulder, their pale skin seeming pathetically vulnerable, compared to her armored scales. 3 humans were brought in yesterday, after a tunnel collapse in Sector 7. Dr. Krellin estimated they would require at least a week of recovery. Vextar paused, his throat bobbing as he swallowed. They discharged themselves after 4 hours and returned to work. Impossible. I thought so too, Commander. But the security footage shows human designation Marcus Thompson pulling a support beam off his trapped colleague, lifting nearly twice his own body weight. Then human designation Sarah Chen crawled through a gap barely wide enough for a Zerian sandworm to extract the 3rd victim, while the tunnel was still settling. Zarathek stared at the footage Vextar brought up on the main screen. There it was, clear as the twin suns. The human male, his arms trembling with effort, somehow finding the strength to lift a beam that should have been impossible for his species. The female, her body contorting in ways that defied her supposedly rigid skeletal structure, disappearing into a space that looked like certain death. "Have you verified these recordings weren't tampered with?" "Multiple times, Commander. The humans call it adrenaline and determination." Dr. Krellin is baffled. He says their physiology suggests they should have died from the stress alone. The commander's mind raced. In her 3 decades of military service, she had conquered 12 worlds and overseen 47 subjugation campaigns. She understood warfare, understood fear, understood the breaking point of every known species. But humans seem to have no breaking point. What about the incident in the quantum furnace chamber? Vextar's scales actually paled. Human designation David Park exposed himself to radiation levels that should have liquefied his cellular structure. He stayed inside for 17 minutes to manually restart the cooling systems. By all known biological laws, he should have died instantly. And he requested extra rations for dinner because all that running around made him hungry. Zarathek felt something she hadn't experienced since her first battle against the crystal hive minds of Andromeda: uncertainty. Every species had a pattern, a predictable response to stress and adversity. You applied the right pressure and they broke. You offered the right incentives and they complied. Humans seem to operate by entirely different rules. "Commander," Vextar continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, "there's something else. The humans have been asking about their families. Their families are safe in the containment domes as per regulations. Yes, but they keep requesting permission to visit. They speak of their offspring with a intensity that our behavioral analysts find disturbing. Human designation Jennifer Walsh attacked 3 guards yesterday when she thought she heard her child crying." 3 guards? She's barely half my size. The security recordings show her moving faster than our equipment could track. She incapacitated guard designation Throx with what they call maternal instinct before backup arrived. The commander moved to her private communication console and opened a channel to High Command. The blue-tinged hologram of Admiral Korath materialized before her, his four eyes blinking in sequence as they always did when he was annoyed. Commander Zarathek, your reports have been unusual. Admiral, I must request a full xenobiological assessment team. These humans are not what our intelligence suggested. Explain. They show no fear response to situations that would paralyze seasoned warriors. They demonstrate physical capabilities that exceed their apparent biological limitations, and they display pack loyalty behaviors that make them unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Admiral Korath's expression shifted from annoyance to interest. Dangerous? They're a primitive species that only achieved spaceflight 200 cycles ago. Sir, yesterday a human child no more than 10 cycles old protected a wounded Xerian mining beast from 3 adult Centauri supervisors. The beast had been attacking workers all week, but somehow the child made it docile. When questioned, the child said the beast was just scared and needed a friend. The Admiral's four eyes focused on her with laser intensity. You're suggesting these humans might be more than suitable for basic labor? I'm suggesting, Admiral, that we might have completely misunderstood what we're dealing with. Through the observation window, Zarathek watched as human designation Thompson, the same one who had lifted the impossible beam, now sat sharing his meal with an injured Xerian mining beast. The creature, known for its vicious temperament and powerful jaws, was eating gently from the human's hand like a domesticated pet. Admiral, she said quietly, I don't think we're overseeing a workforce. I think we might have accidentally recruited something else entirely. The transmission ended, leaving Zarathek alone with her thoughts and the increasingly impossible reports streaming across her desk. Tomorrow she would begin implementing new protocols. Tonight she would try to understand how a species that had barely crawled out of their home system had managed to completely overturn everything she thought she knew about conquest and control. Part 2 High. Admiral Korath's War Council chamber had seen the planning of 1,000 conquests, but never a meeting quite like this one. Representatives from 7 different species sat around the obsidian table, their various forms of unease creating a symphony of nervous sounds, clicking claws, rustling feathers, and the low humming that Etherians made when stressed. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Korath began, his four eyes scanning the assembled intelligence reports. In the 6 months since we placed humans in our mining operations, productivity has increased by 300% across all facilities. Commander Zarathek nodded grimly. That's correct, Admiral. But that's not the concerning part. Not concerning? Intelligence Director Vothrak spoke up, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. The humans have turned every assignment into what they call a challenge. They compete with each other to see who can extract the most ore, dig the deepest tunnels, and survive the harshest conditions. They've made games out of potentially fatal situations, added Dr. Kelvara, the chief xenobiologist. Human designation Rodriguez started something called speed mining, where they race to clear tunnel sections. Instead of being exhausted by the competition, they seem energized by it. Admiral Korath leaned back in his chair, a gesture that made his massive frame creak against the reinforced metal. Continue. Commander Zarathek activated the holographic display showing footage from various mining sites. The humans have begun what they call adoption programs. They're domesticating our mining beasts. The footage showed scenes that defied all known behavioral science. Humans sitting beside massive Xerion tunnelers, creatures bred for their aggressive nature and territorial instincts, feeding them by hand and scratching behind their armored plates. A human child had somehow convinced a plasma wolf, a beast capable of melting steel with its breath, to play what appeared to be a fetching game. This is impossible, muttered General Crozen, his mandibles clicking rapidly. Plasma wolves are genetically engineered killing machines. They're designed to be untrainable. Tell that to human designation Amy Chen, Dr. Kelevara replied. She's apparently taught 3 of them to sit, stay, and something she calls rollover. The wolves seem to enjoy it. How is this affecting our control systems? Admiral Korath asked. The question hung in the air like a toxic gas. Commander Zarathek exchanged glances with her fellow officers before speaking. Admiral, we may not have control anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Explain. The humans have created what they call communities within our facilities. They share resources, protect each other's offspring, and have established educational systems for their young. Yesterday, human designation. Thompson asked me why we don't just work together, instead of maintaining the overseer-worker dynamic. Intelligence Director Vothrak's crystalline structure shifted to a deeper blue. They're questioning the fundamental power structure? Worse, Zarathik continued. They're ignoring it. Human designation Martinez walked into my command center last week to report a safety concern. Not through proper channels, not with permission, not out of fear. He just walked in. When I demanded to know how he accessed restricted areas, he said he picked the lock because someone could get hurt. The lock was quantum encrypted, Vothrak whispered. He used a paperclip and something he called patience. Dr. Kelevara brought up another set of recordings. The behavioral modifications are spreading to other species. Centauri workers who have been in contact with humans are beginning to show increased productivity and decreased compliance with authority. 3 Altarian supervisors have requested transfers to learn human work methods. Admiral Korath studied the data streams flowing across his display. Production numbers, efficiency ratings, injury reports, all painting the same impossible picture. What about security incidents? That's where it gets interesting, Commander Zarathek said. Security incidents have dropped 97%. But not because the humans are compliant. They've simply made our security protocols irrelevant. Irrelevant how? They police themselves, Admiral. When human designation Jackson started hoarding food rations, the other humans didn't report him to security. They sat him down for what they called an intervention. They discovered his family was sick and he was saving medicine money by eating less. Within hours, they had organized a fund to cover his family's medical expenses. General Kruzen's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. They solved a disciplinary issue through cooperation. It gets stranger. Human designation Williams discovered a flaw in our tunnel support structure that would have resulted in catastrophic failure within weeks. Instead of using this information for leverage or escape planning, she submitted a detailed engineering report with suggested improvements. She gave us information that would prevent her own liberation. Admiral Korath's 4 eyes blinked in confused sequence. Her exact words were, "People could die, and that's not acceptable." She then worked 18 straight hours implementing the fixes herself because, quote, it needed to be done right. Dr. Kelvara pulled up biological charts. Admiral, we need to discuss the physical modifications we're observing. Modifications? Humans exposed to our mining environments are adapting at a cellular level. Not evolving, adapting. Their oxygen efficiency has improved by 40%. Their resistance to radiation has tripled. Their muscle density has increased while maintaining flexibility. It's as if their bodies are consciously choosing to become better suited for their environment. Impossible. Adaptation takes thousands of generations. Not for humans, apparently. Human Designation Park, who was exposed to quantum radiation 3 months ago, now reads energy signatures that our equipment can't detect. He's become a living sensor array. Admiral Korath stood and paced to the chamber's massive viewport, looking out at the sprawling fleet that had conquered a dozen star systems. What are you all telling me? Commander Zarathek chose her words carefully. Admiral, I don't think humans are a primitive species that got lucky with space travel. I think we encountered them before they were ready to show us what they really are. And what are they really? A species that doesn't just adapt to challenges, Admiral. They transform challenges into opportunities. They don't just survive hostile environments, they make hostile environments better. They don't just endure hardship, they find ways to make hardship serve others. The Admiral turned back to face his counsel. Recommendations? The officers exchanged glances. Finally, Intelligence Director Vothrak spoke. Admiral, we have 2 options. We can try to reassert control through traditional methods, which our behavioral analysis suggests will fail catastrophically, or we can try to understand what they want and see if we can work with it. Admiral Korath's 4 eyes focused on the human footage still playing on the screens. A human child was teaching a group of young Centauri workers how to play what appeared to be a coordination game, all of them laughing in their respective species' ways. Set up a meeting, he said finally. I want to speak with their representatives. Admiral, Commander Zarathek said quietly, they don't have representatives. When I asked who speaks for them, they said we all do. When it matters. For the first time in his long military career, High Admiral Korath felt like he was facing something completely outside his understanding of how the universe worked. Then we speak with all of them. Part 3. The Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Mining Consortium had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Originally designed for formal negotiations between established civilizations, it now buzzed with an energy that made the alien architects who built it seem almost quaint. Humans filled roughly half the massive space, but their presence somehow made the room feel both smaller and more alive. Admiral Korath observed from his elevated platform as humans of all ages streamed in, many still wearing their mining gear, others dressed in what appeared to be clothing they had fashioned from available materials. What struck him most was how they moved, not as a conquered workforce filing in for mandatory assembly, but as people coming together to solve a problem. "Admiral," Commander Zarathek whispered from beside him, "they're bringing their children." Indeed, human offspring were scattered throughout the crowd, not hidden away or left behind, but integrated naturally into the group. A small human girl sat on her father's shoulders, curiously examining a Centauri diplomat with bright, unafraid eyes. An adolescent human was showing a group of young Altarians how to fold what he called paper airplanes. "Is this normal human behavior?" the Admiral asked Dr. Kelvara. "According to our research, humans consider their offspring's future when making important decisions. They apparently want their children to witness and understand significant events." Human designation Thompson, the same individual who had lifted the impossible beam, stood up from the crowd. Without any apparent selection process or formal recognition, he simply began to speak and the room quieted. "Admiral Korath, we appreciate you agreeing to this meeting. We know this situation is unusual for everyone involved." The Admiral activated his translation systems, though he was beginning to suspect they might not be adequate for this conversation. "Human Thompson, our records indicate you have no formal leadership structure. Who authorizes you to speak?" Thompson glanced around at his fellow humans, and what happened next would puzzle xenosociologists for decades. There was no visible communication, no formal vote, no hierarchical consultation. Yet somehow, the entire group of humans seemed to reach a consensus in seconds. "We all do, when it matters," Thompson replied, echoing the phrase Commander Zarathek had reported earlier. "But if you need someone to blame if this goes wrong, I volunteer." "You volunteer to be held responsible for the decisions of your entire species?" "Someone has to. Might as well be me." Admiral Korath found himself leaning forward despite his training in maintaining diplomatic distance. "Very well. What do you wish to discuss?" A human female, designation Williams, the one who had submitted the engineering report, stood up. "Admiral, we need to talk about the plasma wolves. The mining beasts. What about them?" "They're not beasts," said a human child no more than 12 cycles old, who stood up fearlessly in the massive assembly. "They're scared and lonely and they miss their families." The silence that followed was broken by General Crozen's incredulous mandible clicking. "Child, those creatures are engineered killing machines." "No, sir," the child replied politely but firmly. "They're thinking beings who were turned into weapons against their will. My friend Spark told me." "Your friend Spark? She's a plasma wolf. She likes belly rubs and playing fetch, and she gets really sad when she talks about her pack family." Dr. Kelvara was frantically taking notes. "Admiral, this is impossible. Plasma wolves don't have the neural complexity for emotional communication." Human designation Chen, the woman who had crawled through the impossible tunnel gap, spoke up. "Dr. Kelvara, with respect, you've been studying them as specimens. We've been living with them as neighbors. You cannot live with plasma wolves. They're predators. So are we," Thompson said quietly. "Doesn't mean we can't choose to be something better." Admiral Korath felt the conversation slipping away from any framework he understood. "What exactly are you proposing regarding the plasma wolves?" The humans exchanged those impossible rapid glances again, and Thompson nodded. "We want to release them." The alien delegation erupted in various sounds of shock and disbelief. General Crozen's mandibles clattered like machine gun fire. Intelligence Director Vothrak's crystalline form shifted through a spectrum of agitated colors. "Release them?" Admiral Korath demanded. "They're worth millions of credits each. They're the backbone of our mining operations." "Admiral," Williams said, her voice gentle but unwavering, "they're people. Engineered people, traumatized people, but people. You can't own people. They're property of the Galactic Mining Consortium, according to whose laws?" asked another human, designation Martinez, the lockpicking engineer. "We never agreed to those laws. Our people never had representatives in your government." By what moral authority do you claim ownership over thinking beings? Commander Zarathek whispered urgently in the Admiral's ear. Sir, our legal department says they might have a point. Technically, humanity was never formally integrated into the consortium legal framework. Admiral Korath felt something he hadn't experienced since his academy days. Being completely outmaneuvered by an opponent he hadn't seen coming. Humans, you're talking about destroying the entire economic foundation of our mining operations. No, Thompson said. We're talking about building something better. Better how? The human child, the one who had befriended the plasma wolf, raised her small hand. Admiral, sir, Spark says her people know where the biggest ore deposits are. They can smell them from really far away. If they were free and happy, they'd probably help us find more resources than we could ever dig up by making them scared and angry. Dr. Kelevara looked up from his notes. Admiral, if the plasma wolves have geological sensing abilities we haven't mapped, they do, confirmed Human Designation Park, the radiation-adapted one. I've been working with 3 of them. They can detect quantum mineral deposits from distances our equipment can't match, but they won't share that information while they're imprisoned. You're asking us to completely restructure our operations based on the emotional state of mining equipment. No, William said. We're asking you to restructure your operations based on doing the right thing. The increased productivity will just be a bonus. Human Designation Jackson, the one whose fellow humans had helped with his family's medical expenses, stood up. Admiral, my daughter was sick 3 months ago. Your medical system said she couldn't be treated because she wasn't cost-effective. My human colleagues pooled their resources and cured her anyway. Now she's healthy, happy, and she's invented 3 new mining techniques that have increased our sector's output by 40%. What's your point? My point is that taking care of each other doesn't make us weaker. It makes everything better for everyone. Admiral Korath looked out at the assembly of humans, at their children playing with alien youngsters, at their faces showing not fear or defiance but something that looked disturbingly like hope. And if we refuse? Thompson's expression didn't change, but somehow the entire room's atmosphere shifted. Admiral, we're not threatening you, but we won't participate in enslaving thinking beings. We'll find another way to contribute, but it won't involve treating people like property. The plasma wolves will be dangerous if released. They'll be dangerous if they stay imprisoned, too, the human child said matter-of-factly. But free and happy dangerous is better than enslaved and angry dangerous. For the first time in the meeting, Admiral Korath smiled. It was not a pleasant expression on his alien features. Very well, humans. You want to try your way? We'll give you 1 mining facility. 1. If your methods prove more efficient than our established systems, we'll consider expanding the program. And the plasma wolves in that facility will be released under your supervision. When they tear you apart, we'll resume normal operations. Thompson nodded seriously. That's fair. Which facility? Zarion 7, the most dangerous mining operation in our system. If your friendship methods work there, they'll work anywhere. The humans looked at each other, and Admiral Korath could swear he saw them all smile at the same time. When do we start? Thompson asked. Part 4 Zarion 7 had earned its reputation as the deadliest mining operation in the consortium, through a combination of hostile environment, dangerous wildlife, and mining equipment that seemed determined to kill anyone who came near it. The planet's surface was a hellscape of sulfur storms, acid rain, and tectonic instability that made traditional operations nearly impossible. Most species required full environmental suits and lasted no more than a few months before requesting transfer. Commander Zarathek stood in the newly established observation center, watching feeds from across the facility as the humans began their unprecedented experiment. 3 weeks had passed since Admiral Korath had given them control of Zarion 7th, and the results were already defying every prediction her behavioral analysts had made. Status report, she commanded her aide, though she had been monitoring the situation continuously. Lieutenant Vextar approached with his usual nervous energy, but there was something different in his posture. Commander, you're going to want to see this yourself. The main display showed the central mining pit, where the most dangerous extraction work took place. Instead of the heavily armored vehicles and remote operation systems that had previously been required, humans in surprisingly minimal protective gear were working directly alongside creatures that should have been trying to kill them. Are those children? Zarathek asked, her voice barely containing her shock. Human young, yes. They're serving as translators, apparently. On screen, the human child who had befriended the plasma wolf during the assembly was sitting cross-legged in the dirt next to a massive quantum tunneler, one of the most volatile mining beasts in their catalog. The creature, which typically required a full security team to approach, was making soft rumbling sounds while the child petted its crystalline spikes. What is she doing? According to Human Designation Thompson, she's explaining the mining plan to the tunneler and asking for its help in accessing the deep ore deposit safely. Asking? You can't ask mining equipment for help. Commander, Vextar said carefully. They're getting responses. The display showed the quantum tunneler beginning to glow with patterns of light that pulsed in sequences. The human child was nodding seriously, occasionally making hand gestures that seemed to correspond to the creature's bioluminescent display. She says the tunneler's name is Deep Singer, and that he's been trying to warn the previous mining teams about unstable quantum pockets that could have caused catastrophic explosions. Vextar continued, That's impossible. Mining beasts don't have names. They don't understand complex concepts like structural integrity. Commander, the human children have identified 17 individual plasma wolves, 12 quantum tunnelers and 36 cave crawlers by name. They claim each one has a distinct personality and specific expertise. Zarathek switched to another camera feed, this one showing the processing facility where extracted ore was refined. Human workers were operating machinery alongside creatures that had previously required constant restraint and supervision. More impossibly, the creatures seemed to be actively helping, using their natural abilities to sort and process materials with precision that exceeded their best automated systems. Productivity numbers? Up 400% from pre-human baseline, Commander. And that's with safety protocols that should theoretically slow everything down. Safety protocols? Vextar pulled up another screen showing what appeared to be elaborate games being played throughout the facility. The humans have turned safety compliance into competitive activities. They're racing to see who can maintain the cleanest work area, who can go the longest without safety violations, and who can identify potential hazards fastest. They've made a game out of not getting killed? More than that. Human Designation Rodriguez has established what they call safety teams that include both humans and mining beasts. Yesterday, a plasma wolf named Storm Chaser alerted the team to a gas leak that would have killed dozens of workers. The wolf was rewarded with what humans call belly rubs and treat time. Commander Zarathek found herself staring at feeds that challenged everything she understood about industrial operations. In one screen, human engineers were consulting with a group of cave crawlers about optimal tunnel placement. In another, children were teaching young plasma wolves what appeared to be basic mathematics using colored stones and positive reinforcement. Commander, Vextar said, his voice dropping to a whisper. There's something else. The mining beasts are happy. Happy? Dr. Krellin has been monitoring their biological signs. Stress hormones are down 90% across all species. Aggression markers have virtually disappeared. The creatures are showing play behaviors that we've never observed before. The display switched to show a massive quantum tunneler engaged in what could only be described as a game of hide-and-seek with several human children and young aliens from other species. The creature, capable of boring through solid rock with its plasma breath, was making elaborate efforts to pretend it couldn't see the giggling children hiding behind obviously inadequate cover. Play behaviors, Zarathek repeated numbly. It gets stranger. The mining beasts have begun bringing gifts to their human partners. Cave crawlers are presenting unusual mineral specimens. Plasma wolves are sharing information about hidden resource deposits. The tunnelers have started creating what the humans call art, by arranging excavated materials in complex patterns. Art? The patterns are mathematically precise, Commander. Our analysis suggests they might be three-dimensional maps of underground geological structures. Zarathek sat heavily in her command chair. Connect me to Admiral Korath. The Admiral's hologram materialized with its usual air of military authority, but Zarathek could see the calculation behind his 4 eyes. Commander, I trust you have an update on the human experiment? Admiral, they're succeeding beyond any possible projection. Explain. Sir, they've achieved industrial output levels that exceed our theoretical maximums, while maintaining 0 safety incidents, 0 equipment losses, and 0 worker fatalities. The mining beasts are not only cooperating, they're actively innovating solutions to problems we didn't know existed. Admiral Korath's expression shifted from skepticism to intense interest. Continue. Human Designation Park, the radiation-adapted one, has formed what he calls a geological survey team with 6 plasma wolves. They've identified 3 new deposit sites that contain rare elements we've been unsuccessfully searching for across 4-star systems. Rare elements? Quantum crystalline matrices suitable for faster-than-light drive construction, Admiral. The plasma wolves can sense them naturally but never shared that information because, in their words, through the human children. The angry metal people never asked nicely. Admiral Korath leaned forward in his hologram. What do they want in exchange for this information? That's where it gets complicated, sir. They don't want payment in the traditional sense. They want what the humans call community. Community? Shared living spaces, integrated social structures, and recognition as sentient beings rather than equipment. Human Designation Williams has submitted detailed plans for what she calls interspecies cooperative habitats that would allow humans, mining beasts, and other alien species to live and work together as partners rather than as owners and property. The Admiral was quiet for several long moments. Commander, what's your assessment of long-term viability? Admiral, I don't think this is an experiment anymore. I think we're witnessing the emergence of an entirely new model of civilization. Explain. The humans aren't just changing how we mine resources, sir. They're changing how different species relate to each other. Yesterday, a group of Centauri workers requested transfer to Zerion 7 specifically to learn human cooperative methods. This morning, 3 Altarian scientists asked to study what they're calling human social integration techniques. Other species want to learn from them? Admiral, I've been monitoring communications across our entire operation network. Productivity is increasing on facilities that have never had human contact, simply because workers have heard about what's happening here and are trying to replicate human methods. Admiral Korath's 4 eyes narrowed as he processed this information. Commander, are you suggesting that humanity might be more than an interesting workforce? Admiral, I'm suggesting that humanity might be the solution to every integration problem we've ever encountered in our expansion across the galaxy. The transmission ended, leaving Commander Zarathek alone with feeds showing impossible scenes of cooperation and innovation. Through her window, she could see a human child teaching a young cave crawler how to play what appeared to be a version of tag, while their respective parents worked together to install new safety equipment. For the first time since her assignment to this facility, Commander Zarathek began to wonder if perhaps the humans hadn't been conquered at all. Perhaps they had simply decided to show the galaxy a better way to live. Part 5. The emergency session of the Galactic Consortium High Council had been called after reports from Zerion 7 reached the inner systems. Representatives from 12 major civilizations sat in the ancient chamber that had overseen galactic politics for 3 millennia. But the atmosphere was unlike anything in recorded history. Supreme Chancellor Vorthak, an ancient being whose species had achieved spaceflight before most others had developed writing, called the session to order with a ceremonial chime that had opened every major galactic decision for centuries. However, the weight of tradition felt somehow different today. We are here to address what intelligence reports are calling the human phenomenon, Chancellor Vorthak announced, his voice carrying the harmonics that marked his species' formal speech patterns. Admiral Korath, present your findings. Admiral Korath rose, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber's geometric patterns. Honored representatives, 6 months ago we acquired a human workforce for basic mining operations. Today we are confronting a fundamental challenge to every assumption we have made about galactic civilization. The holographic displays activated, showing footage from across the consortium's operations. What played out defied conventional understanding of how conquered species were supposed to behave. These images are from mining facility Tau 7, where humans have been in operation for 4 months. Admiral Korath continued. Productivity has increased by 600%. Equipment losses have dropped to 0. Worker satisfaction indices across all species have reached levels we previously considered impossible. Representative Claxon of the Crystal Dominions, her translucent form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns, spoke first. Admiral, our analysts find these numbers impossible. No conquered species achieves this level of productivity without coercion. That's because we haven't conquered them, Admiral Korath replied. We've hired them. The silence that followed was broken by representative clicks, whistles, and harmonics of confusion from multiple species. Explain this distinction, Chancellor Vorthak demanded. Humans do not respond to traditional conquest paradigms. When subjected to force, they become defiant. When treated as prisoners, they become creative in ways that undermine security. When treated as equals, Admiral Korath paused. They become partners. Representative Morgoth of the war clans, his battle-scarred carapace gleaming under the chamber lights, leaned forward aggressively. Partners? They're a primitive species that achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago. What could they possibly offer as partners? The displays changed to show footage from the Plasma Wolf integration program. Representatives watched in stunned silence as human children communicated complex instructions to creatures that had been considered untrainable killing machines. Human designation Sarah Chen, age 9 standard years, has successfully negotiated a mutual defense agreement between human workers and 17 plasma wolves, Admiral Korath reported. The wolves now patrol mining facilities, alerting workers to safety hazards while humans provide medical care, social interaction, and what they call enrichment activities. A child negotiated with plasma wolves? Representative Claxon's crystalline structure shifted through several colors of disbelief. Not negotiated with. Representative. Befriended. According to our xenobiological teams, the wolves view humans as what they call pack cousins. They've never formed interspecies pack bonds before. Dr. Zenthara of the Science Consortium, whose species had cataloged biological life across the galaxy for millennia, activated her data feeds. Honored representatives, we need to address the biological impossibilities we're observing. Impossibilities? Chancellor Vorthak asked. Humans are demonstrating adaptive capabilities that exceed our understanding of evolutionary biology. Human designation Park, exposed to quantum radiation that should have been fatal, has not only survived but gained the ability to sense subspace energy fluctuations. He's become a living navigation system. Mutation from radiation exposure is not unprecedented. This isn't mutation, Chancellor. It's conscious adaptation. Biological monitoring shows that human cellular structure is actively choosing beneficial modifications while rejecting harmful ones. They're evolving in real time in response to environmental challenges. Representative Morgoth's mandibles clattered skeptically. No species can consciously direct its own evolution. Humans apparently can. Dr. Martinez, a human engineer, has developed the ability to see electromagnetic fields after prolonged exposure to quantum machinery. Human worker Chen can now process toxic atmosphere that would kill most species. They're not just surviving hostile environments. They're becoming perfectly suited for them. The display shifted again, showing the most disturbing footage yet. Humans and aliens from multiple species working together in ways that suggested genuine cooperation rather than simple labor coordination. This footage is from Mining Station Beta 12, Admiral Korath continued. Humans have established what they call integrated communities with Centauri, Altarian, and vegan workers. Cross-species collaboration has increased productivity by 800%. How is this possible? Representative Claxon asked. Humans share, Admiral Korath said simply. When human designation Thompson developed a new tunnel stability technique, he immediately taught it to every worker on his shift, regardless of species. When Centauri worker Vexhai injured himself, humans organized medical care and covered his work shifts until he recovered. They help other species without compensation? They help other species because they consider them friends. Representative Morgoth stood, his war-scarred form imposing even among the powerful beings in the chamber. Admiral, you're describing behaviors that undermine the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. We have spent millennia establishing clear hierarchies, territorial boundaries, and species-based resource allocation. Humans are suggesting these structures are irrelevant. Not irrelevant. Representative inefficient. Chancellor Vorthak leaned forward, his ancient eyes focusing on the Admiral with intensity that had intimidated galactic leaders for centuries. Explain. Humans measure success differently than we do. We measure by dominance, territory controlled, and resources extracted. Humans measure by what they call overall improvement for everyone involved. Everyone? All species, all individuals, all environments. Human designation. Williams has submitted engineering proposals that would increase mining efficiency, while simultaneously improving working conditions for all species and reducing environmental damage to mining worlds. She calls it sustainable abundance. Dr. Zenthera accessed more data feeds.
Chancellor, we need to discuss the psychological effects humans are having on other species. Psychological effects?
Contact with humans is causing measurable changes in non-human brain chemistry. Centauri workers exposed to human social methods show increased creativity, reduced anxiety, and improved problem-solving abilities. Altarian subjects demonstrate enhanced emotional stability and decreased territorial aggression. You're saying humans are changing other species simply by interacting with them? I'm saying humans are helping other species become better versions of themselves. The chamber fell silent as representatives processed this information. Finally, Chancellor Vorthak spoke. What are humans asking for in return for these improvements? Admiral Korath consulted his reports. Nothing, Chancellor. Nothing? When asked what humans want as compensation for their innovations and cooperation, Human Designation Thompson replied, "We want everyone to be happy and safe and to have enough of whatever they need." When pressed for specifics, he added, "We want to be friends with everyone and build cool things together." Representative Morgoth's mandibles clicked rapidly. They want friendship? That's their negotiating position? They don't appear to be negotiating, Representative. They appear to be simply being helpful. Chancellor Vorthak stood, his ancient form moving with the weight of decisions that would affect billions of beings across the galaxy. Representatives, we face an unprecedented situation. We have encountered a species that appears to operate by entirely different principles than any we have previously catalogued. What do you recommend, Chancellor? Representative Claxon asked. I recommend we discover what happens when we stop trying to control humans and start trying to learn from them. The chamber erupted in various sounds of surprise and debate from multiple species. Through it all, Admiral Korath continued watching the feeds from Zarian 7, where human children were teaching alien youngsters how to play games that seemed to make everyone involved happier and more creative. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Korath found himself wondering if conquest was really the best way to explore the galaxy. Part 6. The transformation of Zarian 7 into what humans called a cooperative community had attracted observers from across the galaxy. The once deadly mining world now hosted representatives from 47 different species, all trying to understand how humans had achieved what military strategists and social engineers had considered impossible. Commander Zarathek found herself in the unusual position of giving tours to dignitaries who had once been her superiors. Today's group included Supreme Chancellor Vorthak himself, along with representatives from several species that had never shown interest in mining operations. The key difference, Human Designation Thompson was explaining to the assembled group, is that we stopped thinking about work as something you do to survive and started thinking about it as something you do to help. They stood in the central plaza of what had once been the administrative complex. Humans had redesigned it as a gathering space where beings from multiple species could interact comfortably. Plasma wolves lounged in specially designed comfort areas while young humans and aliens played collaborative games nearby. Help whom? Asked Representative Silktar of the Etherian Collective, her gossamer form flickering with patterns of curiosity. Help everyone, replied Human Designation Chen, the woman who had crawled through the impossible tunnel. We help the plasma wolves feel safe and valued. They help us find resources more efficiently. We help the quantum tunnelers maintain their health. They help us access deeper deposits safely. Everyone wins. Supreme Chancellor Vorthak observed a group of human children working with young Centauri and Altarians on what appeared to be an engineering project. What are they building? A new air filtration system, Thompson said proudly. The kids figured out that if you combine human creativity, Centauri precision, and Altarian environmental sensitivity, you can create atmospheric processors that work better than anything our individual species could build alone. Children did this. Kids are great at solving problems because they haven't learned that some things are supposed to be impossible yet. Commander Zarathek led the group to the Mining Operations Center, where the most dramatic changes were visible. Instead of the heavily armed supervisors and constant security presence that had characterized previous operations, the area buzzed with voluntary collaboration. Our safety record has been perfect for 4 months, she reported to the Chancellor. Not because we've increased security measures, but because every being here is invested in keeping everyone else safe. They watched as a plasma wolf named Storm Chaser approached a human engineer with urgent barks and gestures. The human immediately called for a work stoppage and followed the wolf to a section of tunnel where thermal sensors detected the beginnings of a gas buildup that could have caused an explosion. The wolf detected a danger that our equipment missed, Representative Silktar asked. Happens 3 or 4 times a week, Thompson replied. The plasma wolves have senses we can't match. But they only share that information now because they know we listen to them and act on their warnings. And before they were treated like dangerous equipment. If they tried to warn anyone, they were sedated or restrained. Now they're partners. Supreme Chancellor Vorthak observed the interaction between humans and creatures that had been classified as untrainable. How do you communicate complex technical information? Same way you communicate with anyone, said the human child who had first befriended a plasma wolf. You pay attention, you're patient, and you care about what they're trying to tell you. The child, whose name was Amy Chen, demonstrated by approaching a massive quantum tunneler that was resting between shifts. The creature's bioluminescent patterns began shifting as Amy spoke to it in what sounded like normal conversation. She's asking Deep Singer about the mineral composition 3 levels down. Thompson translated. Deep Singer is explaining that there's a rare crystal formation that could be valuable, but accessing it requires specific excavation techniques to avoid destabilizing the surrounding rock. The creature understands geological engineering? Chancellor Vorthak asked. Deep Singer has been doing geological engineering for longer than any of us have been alive, Amy replied matter-of-factly. We just never bothered to ask his opinion before. The tour continued to the residential areas where perhaps the most remarkable changes were visible. Humans had redesigned living spaces to accommodate the needs of multiple species, creating environments where beings with different atmospheric temperature and social requirements could coexist comfortably. Each family pod is customized, explained Human Designation Williams. The engineer who had submitted the safety reports. Centauri need higher humidity. Altarians prefer dimmer lighting. Humans are pretty adaptable. We just made sure everyone has what they need. And the plasma wolves. They needed pack socialization and hunting simulation. We built play areas where they can exercise their natural behaviors without endangering anyone. Turns out they love obstacle courses and puzzle games. Representative Silktar flickered with patterns that her species used to express confusion. You redesigned an entire facility to accommodate the preferences of mining equipment? We redesigned a facility to accommodate the needs of our friends, Williams corrected gently. The group entered what humans called the Innovation Center, where collaborative research was conducted. Here the true scope of human influence became apparent. Multiple species were working together on projects that none could have accomplished individually. This is our faster-than-light drive improvement project, explained Human Designation Park, the radiation-adapted one whose biosensors had become legendary. Combining human intuitive engineering, Centauri mathematical precision, Altarian materials science, and plasma wolf quantum sensing, we've increased FTL efficiency by 300%. Improved FTL drive technology? Chancellor Vorthak asked, his ancient voice carrying notes of surprise. The plasma wolves can sense quantum fluctuations in ways our instruments can't match. Humans are good at creative problem-solving. Centauri are precise with calculations. Altarians understand materials at the molecular level. Together, we found solutions that none of us could reach alone. Representative Silktar flickered rapidly. You're sharing advanced technology freely among species? Of course, Park replied. Better technology helps everyone travel safer and faster. Why wouldn't we share it? Technological advantages are typically maintained as strategic assets. That's inefficient, Thompson said. If everyone has better technology, everyone benefits. We can explore more of the galaxy, trade more effectively, and help each other solve bigger problems. The tour concluded in the central meeting area, where beings from multiple species were engaged in what appeared to be a combination of work planning and social interaction. The atmosphere was unlike anything Chancellor Vorthak had experienced in his centuries of diplomatic service. Supreme Chancellor, Thompson said, we want to show you something. The human led them to a holographic display showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. Multiple star systems were marked with various symbols and notations. "This is our expansion proposal," Williams explained. "Not expansion like conquest, expansion like exploration and cooperation." Explain. "We've identified 17 systems that have unique resources or interesting challenges. Instead of sending military expeditions to establish dominance, we want to send cooperative missions to establish partnerships." "Partnerships with whom?" "With whoever lives there," Thompson said. "And if nobody lives there, we want to build communities that any species can join if they want to help explore and build cool things." Chancellor Vorthak studied the map, noting the complexity of the proposed logistics. This would require unprecedented cooperation between species that have traditionally been territorial competitors. "Or," Amy Chen said, looking up at the towering chancellor with the fearless directness that seemed characteristic of human children, "it would require everyone to decide that being friends and building cool things together is more fun than fighting over stuff." For several long moments, the ancient leader of galactic civilization stared down at a human child who had just casually suggested rewriting the fundamental principles of interstellar relations. "Human Amy," he said finally, "what if some species prefer fighting to cooperation? Then they can fight each other while the rest of us go explore cool planets and build awesome stuff," she replied. "But I bet if we're having enough fun, they'll want to join us eventually." Supreme Chancellor Vorthak turned to Commander Zarathek. "Commander, what is your assessment of the viability of human proposals?" "Chancellor," she replied, "6 months ago I would have said they were impossible. Today I'm standing in a facility where impossible things happen every day, because humans convinced everyone involved that impossible just means nobody tried the right approach yet." Chancellor Vorthak looked around at the bustling community of multiple species working, playing, and innovating together. For the first time in his long reign, he found himself wondering if perhaps the galaxy was ready for something completely different. "Humans," he said formally, "the Galactic Consortium would like to discuss expanding your cooperative methods to additional facilities." Thompson grinned. "That's great. When do we start?" Part 7. 2 years after the first human workers had been assigned to basic mining operations, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. The changes had spread far beyond what anyone had predicted, touching civilizations that had never encountered humans, directly and reshaping assumptions that had governed interstellar relations for millennia. Admiral Korath stood in the newly renamed Cooperation Command Center of what had once been the Galactic Mining Consortium's military headquarters. Through the vast windows, he could see ships from dozens of species docked together, their crews working on joint projects that would have been unthinkable just years before. "Status report," he requested from his aide, though the term aide no longer accurately described their relationship. Lieutenant Vextar had become something more like a collaborative partner, as human influence had transformed even military hierarchies. "Admiral, we now have cooperative communities established in 47 star systems," Vextar reported, his nervousness long since replaced by genuine enthusiasm. "Productivity across all operations is up an average of 900%, and we haven't had a single security incident in 18 months. "Security incidents?" "There's nothing to secure against, Admiral. When everyone is working together toward shared goals, traditional security concerns become irrelevant." Admiral Korath nodded, though part of him still struggled to accept how completely humans had transformed everything they touched. The holographic displays showed feeds from across the galaxy, revealing scenes that his military training insisted should be impossible. On Rigel 7, humans and crystalline silicoids were working together to develop new forms of architecture that combined organic growth patterns with geometric precision. On the agricultural world of Demeter 3, human children were teaching Centauri young how to cultivate plants that adapted to multiple species' nutritional needs simultaneously. In the asteroid belt around Wolf 359, plasma wolves were guiding human engineers in the construction of mining platforms that worked with gravitational fields, rather than against them. "What's the status of the Alpha Centauri project?" Admiral Korath asked. "The terraforming initiative is ahead of schedule by 3 years, Vextar replied. Human designation Chen's team discovered that instead of forcing planetary environments to conform to individual species' needs, they could create adaptive ecosystems that modify themselves to support whatever beings choose to live there." "Adaptive ecosystems?" Planets that actively adjust their atmospheric composition, temperature ranges, and even gravitational fields to accommodate their inhabitants. The humans call it living worlds technology. Admiral Korath moved to the communication center where a priority message was waiting from Supreme Chancellor Vortak. The ancient leader's hologram materialized with an expression that mixed excitement with bewilderment. Admiral Korath, we have a situation that requires immediate attention. What kind of situation, Chancellor? The hegemony of Vortak has requested membership in the Cooperative Alliance. Admiral Korath felt his four eyes widen in shock. The hegemony of Vortak was the most militaristic civilization in the known galaxy, a species that had built their entire culture around conquest and domination. They had been the consortium's primary military rival for over a century. The Vortak want to join us? Apparently, human designation Thompson visited their home system as part of a cultural exchange program. He spent 3 weeks teaching Vortak younglings what he called cooperative games and discussing their engineering techniques with their military engineers. What happened? The Vortak discovered that human collaborative methods could improve their military efficiency by factors they describe as impossible to ignore. More significantly, their young ones enjoyed cooperative activities so much that they began questioning why Vortak society emphasized conquest over collaboration. Admiral Korath found himself sitting down heavily. A 3-week cultural exchange program convinced our primary military rival to abandon their fundamental social structure. Not abandon, Admiral. Evolve. The Vortak are requesting guidance in transitioning from a conquest-based civilization to what they call cooperative strength building. They want to apply their military precision to collaborative projects rather than territorial expansion. The implications were staggering. If the Vortak, the most militaristic species in the galaxy, could be converted to cooperative methods, then the entire concept of interstellar conflict might become obsolete. Chancellor, what exactly did Human Thompson do during his visit? According to Vortak reports, he played games with their children, helped their engineers solve technical problems, and asked questions about their culture with what they describe as genuine interest and respect. He then suggested ways they could use their natural strengths to help other species rather than conquering them. And that was sufficient? Admiral, you've seen what humans do. They don't convince people to change. They show people that change is possible, then help them discover that the change makes everyone happier. Admiral Korath switched to the long-range communication array and opened a channel to Zerion 7, where human designation Thompson was currently working on what humans called community development. Thompson's image appeared on screen, his face showing the easy confidence that humans seemed to develop when working on projects they enjoyed. Behind him, Admiral Korath could see a construction site where beings from at least 6 different species were building what appeared to be a massive collaborative research facility. Admiral, good to hear from you. How are things going? Human Thompson, I understand you recently visited the Vortak hegemony. Great people. Really impressive engineering capabilities. They've been building these amazing defensive structures for centuries, and it only took a little creativity to help them see how those same techniques could be used to build instead of just defend. You converted our primary military rival to cooperative methods in 3 weeks? Thompson looked genuinely puzzled. Converted? Admiral, I didn't convert anyone. I just showed their kids some fun games and talked to their engineers about cool building projects. The Vortak figured out the rest themselves. The rest being a complete transformation of their civilization. Admiral, people everywhere want the same basic things: to feel safe, to feel valued, and to work on interesting projects with friends. The Vortak just needed someone to show them that building things with others is more fun than taking things from others. Admiral Korath felt the familiar sensation of human logic making perfect sense while simultaneously challenging everything he thought he understood about psychology and sociology. Thompson, what's your assessment of galactic-scale cooperation prospects? Thompson gestured to the construction site behind him, where a young Vortak warrior was teaching a human child how to operate heavy construction equipment, while a plasma wolf provided geological guidance. Admiral, I think we're just getting started. There are thousands of species in the galaxy we haven't met yet. Imagine what we could build together if everyone was working on the same team. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Korath staring at displays showing cooperative communities spreading across star systems like a benevolent virus. Each community became a center for innovation that attracted more species, more collaboration, and more impossible achievements. "Admiral," Vextar said quietly, "there's one more thing you should know." "What now?" "The humans have submitted a proposal for something they call the Great Project, which is, they want to build a galaxy-spanning network of cooperative communities connected by improved FTL technology, with the goal of establishing peaceful contact with every intelligent species in the galaxy and inviting them to participate in collaborative exploration of the universe." Admiral Korath stared at his aide. "They want to organize the entire galaxy into a cooperative community?" "That's their eventual goal, yes. They estimate it will take about 50 years, assuming everyone's interested. And if some species aren't interested, then those species can do their own thing while everyone else explores the universe together. The humans say there's plenty of space for everyone to pursue whatever makes them happy." Admiral Korath looked out at the ships from dozens of species working together in ways that had been unthinkable just years ago. In the distance, he could see construction beginning on humanity's latest project, a space station designed to accommodate any form of life that wanted to participate in what humans called galactic friendship building. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Korath found himself wondering if conquest had ever really been necessary, or if everyone had simply been waiting for someone to suggest a better way. "Vextar," he said finally, "put me down as a volunteer for the Great Project." "Admiral, if humans can transform the galaxy by being helpful and making friends, then I want to learn how to help and make friends too." Outside the command center windows, ships from across the galaxy continued their impossible collaborations, building a future that no military strategist had ever imagined, but that somehow felt like what the universe had been waiting for all along.